Read. The triple jade-green snake flower pupils was an extremely mysterious pair of eyes in this world. In terms of rarity, it was likely even rarer than little fairy doctor's woeful poison body. Xiao Yin had merely seen the triple jade-green snake flower pupils once during all these years. That was during the time when he was within the mercenary company that his big and second brother had established while he was training within the Jiama Empire. However, the owner of the triple jade-green snake flower pupils that time was merely a timid little girl. She was a pitiful little female servant who had been mocked and viewed with great discrimination because of her snake person bloodline. Back then, Xiao Yin had never viewed this little girl as a servant due to him, pitting the miserable past that she had. Not only did he help her walk out from her timidness, but it also provided her with much care. After he had returned from his training within the desert, he had discovered that this little girl was already captured by the Mo clan. In order to rescue her, Xiao Yin had used many tactics and created a great mess in the Mo clan before he eventually rescued her. At the last moment, however, the members of the so-called Sky Serpent Mansion finally intervened and snatched her away. Although Yao Lao had said that the Sky Serpent Mansion would definitely treat her well, Xiao Yan's heart had always remembered that timid young girl during these years. The name of that little girl was Qinglin. At the same time, she was also the owner of the triple jade-green snake flower pupils. That girl was also startled upon hearing the exclamation from Xiao Yan's mouth. Her eyes were extremely surprised as she looked at him and asked, "You? How do you know my name?" The surprise in Xiao Yan's eyes became even denser when he heard this. He had never expected that this opponent, whom he was greatly afraid of, would actually be that little female servant from back then. Xiao Yan's expression involuntarily became a little strange when he thought of this. After having not met her for so many years, the gentle and weak little girl from back then had grown up to be slim and tall. She could be considered a great beauty. One was also no longer able to see her timidness from back then. "What is it?" Little fairy doctor and the others also flashed over. Their eyes swept over the two of them in a strange manner and asked, "Qi?" Xiao Yin involuntarily laughed as he stared intently at the exquisite melon face that was filled with doubt. He shifted away the heavy Xin ruler from Qinglin's throat and slammed it heavily onto the ground. He laughed, "Little girl, do you still recognize this ruler?" Qinglin blinked her eyes. Her gaze looked at the large heavy Xin ruler in front of her. Her eyebrows were bunched up. This thing gave her a familiar feeling. Even this smiling young man in front of her caused her to feel a familiarity. It appeared that these things had been present deep within her memories. Jiama Empire, Vast Tager Desert, Desert Metal Mercenary Company. Xiao Yin smilingly looked at Qinglin in deep thought and laughingly reminded. Qinglin's body suddenly trembled when she heard these three sentences. Her eyes immediately widened. She looked at Xiao Yin in front of her with great disbelief, after which she stammered, "Xiao, young Master Xiao Yin? You have finally remembered, huh?" Xiao Yin smiled and involuntarily rubbed Qinglin's head. He sighed, "We have not met for so many years. You have really grown up?" Qinglin's face and eyes immediately turned red and moist when her head was being rubbed by Xiao Yin. Her heart clearly understood how Xiao Yin treated her back then. After having been brought to the Sky Serpent Mansion, she was also aware of just how Xiao Yin took a great risk to head to the Mo clan to rescue her. She had cried for a long time because of this back then. At that time, she was still a timid little girl. She had always thought of herself as Xiao Yan's female servant. However, she did not expect that Xiao Yin was actually willing to take such a risk for her, a lowly female servant. In the heart of this little girl, who had experienced the cool indifference of the world, it was a matter that she could not imagine. Little fairy doctor and the rest by the side saw this situation that had completely taken a turn around. All of them were unable to recover. Amongst those present, only little fairy doctor was acquainted with Xiao Yin earlier than Qinglin. However, at that time, she had went to the Chuyun Empire alone. Naturally, she had also not seen Qinglin. "What situation is this?" Ziyin muttered. Ziyin and the rest also shook their heads. They were also uncertain just how this dramatic scene had come about. "You are not injured, are you?" Xiao Yin recalled the timid little female servant from back then as he looked at Qinglin. He involuntarily spoke in a gentle voice. I'm I'm fine. Xiao Yin. Qinglin spoke in a somewhat hurried manner. Due to the memories left behind in her youth being too deep, even though she currently possessed the powerful strength of a top-tier expert in the continent, she still felt a kind of restraint under the smile of Xiao Yin for some unknown reason. It was just like a child meeting a stern parent. If you don't mind, you can call me Big Brother Xiao Yin. Xiao Yin thought that Qinglin was unable to say the words, young master, that she had smoothly uttered back then when he saw this manner of Qinglin. He immediately laughed. Currently, Qinglin was no longer that young female servant from back then. With her matured triple jade-green snake flower pupils, it was likely that no one on this continent could take her in as a female servant. No, I will still call you young master Xiao Yin. I like to call you this. Qinglin hurriedly shook her head when she heard this. Her hands were anxiously crossed together. How did this manner of hers look like the murder that had turned RHE9 serene deep-ground python tribe upside down? Xiao Yin smiled but did not mind. His eyes stared at Qinglin as he said, back then, you were rescued from the hands of the Mo clan but was finally being brought away by the people from the Sky Serpent Mansion. How did they treat you? They treat me very well and even intends for me to helm the Sky Serpent Mansion. However, the elders wished to match me with the eldest son of the previous chief. I was unwilling, so I ended up secretly running away. Qinglin nodded. However, she did not say everything. After having secretly run away, she had first made a trip to the Jiama Empire. However, everything was already different. After some inquiry, she finally became aware that Xiao Yin had headed to the Central Plains. Since she had nothing to do, she also traveled a great distance to this place. Part of the reason was to tour and gain experience, but most of it was because she wanted to find a certain person who had left a deep impression in her heart. Due to the triple jade-green snake flower pupils, her status during these years was different. There were also many people around her who began to court her favor. However, the one whom she really could not forget was the young master, who was also quite young. While she was still a helpless young female servant back then, he would actually take such a big risk to rescue her. The thing that was most worthwhile to recall is the events and people they experienced and met when they were at their lowest point in life. This was because the people and events at that time were truly able to leave behind an impression that could not be removed deep within one's hearts. Fortunately, the heavens rewarded those who were resolute. The person whom she was finding these years had finally appeared in front of her when she least expected it. That young master Xiao Yin, this? Qinglin crossed her hands. A green light suddenly flashed within her eyes. A snow-white little beast had once again appeared in her hand. The latter immediately widened its stride and rushed into Xiao Yan's embrace once it was released. It trembled and revealed a frightened expression in its eyes as it looked at Qinglin. Xiao Yan rubbed the pill beast in his embrace and involuntarily laughed. He asked, "Do you need the pill beast?" Qinglin hurriedly shook her head when she heard this. However, after being stared at by Xiao Yan's gaze, she finally muttered, "I wanted to use the blood of the pill beast to remove the poison within my body." Remove poison? Xiao Yan's heart sunk. He extended his hand and said, "Give your hand to me. I'll take a look." Qinglin hesitated for a moment before extending her delicate hand, after which she placed it into Xiao Yan's palm. The warm, large hand of the latter caused her to become flush. Xiao Yan did not pay attention to all of these. A thought passed through his mind, and a wisp of spiritual strength entered Qinglin's body from her hand. After a careful observation, he involuntarily tightened his brows. He discovered that Qingling's body and even her blood were all mixed with poisonous qi. This kind of poisonous qi was dark and icy. It appeared to be intending to freeze one's blood and was extremely vicious. "What poison is this?" Xiao Yan frowned and asked. "This is the Emperor Python heart-eroding poison of the 9 serene deep-ground python tribe. It is one of the top mysterious poison in this world. It is rumored to be without any antidote." Qinglin said, "There is nothing certain in nature. Positive and negative, yin and yang. These are the rules of nature. If there is poison, there will be an antidote. Those that are said to be without antidote are those which antidote had yet to be found." Xiao Yan shook his head. His expression had become a little serious when he spoke until this point. It was likely that he had also heard of this so-called emperor python heart-eroding poison. It is rumored that the blood within the bodies of those medicinal pills that could turn into a beast can cure most poisons. Therefore, I have come here to try my luck. Unexpectedly, I have really met it. Qing Lin glanced at the snow-white little beast in Xiao Yan's embrace and said, "A medicinal pill of this quality is indeed able to resist quite a number of poisons. However, just this alone is insufficient to completely remove the blockage within your body." Little fairy doctor by the side also opened her mouth and said, she was an expert in using poison. Naturally, she had the right to speak. However, it is not too much of a problem. With the help of the blood of a pill beast, it is not impossible to remove this emperor python heart-eroding poison despite its lethality. Xiao Yan nodded. He immediately frowned slightly and asked, "Why would you offend the 9 serene deep-ground python tribe? They are not a group that one can easily offend. I am not the one who offend them. They are the ones who had come and offend me." Qing Lin was a little wronged as she said, "When I had come to the beast region back then, I was merely intending to find some powerful snake-form magical beast. How could I expect to end up meeting an elder of the 9 serene deep-ground python tribe? He had recognized my eyes and intend to capture me. I could only retaliate. Finally, I end up controlling him. However, he had released some news at the last moment and caused the entire 9 serene deep-ground python tribe to come and capture me. Finally, I can only capture some unlucky fellows. The triple Jade-Green snake flower pupils is the nemesis of all snake-form magical beasts. Other than those few snake-form magical beasts that possess pure ancient bloodlines like Kai Lin Jie's 7-colored heaven-swallowing python, the others will be in great danger when facing the triple Jade-Green snake flower pupils. It will be strange if others do not capture you, given you possess such a thing." Ziyin curled her mouth. She still felt some grudge because of the night that Qing Lin attacked her. Xiao Yan smiled. He patted Qing Lin's shoulder and said, "It's fine. There is no need to be worried. Although this poison is troublesome, it is not impossible to cure. However, this place is currently not the best place to remove the poison. Once we leave the remains, I will think of a way to help you expel the poison. Why don't you follow beside me before this?" Qing Lin's face reddened as she nodded gently. Xiao Yan smiled and stood up. With such a great helper by their side, their lineup had once again swiftly strengthened a little. Should they meet Feng Qing'er's group again, just this lineup would be able to suppress them. Seeing this scene of enemies suddenly becoming companions, everyone other than those directly involved had faces that were at a complete loss. Did this relationship not change a little too quickly? Humph, she had even tried to control me that night. Ziyin glanced at Qing Lin and snorted softly. "That is a misunderstanding. I am able to see through the actual form of a person. Back then, I thought that you are a 9 serene deep-ground python. Moreover, your actual body is a little different from them and is really similar to the royal family of the 9 serene deep-ground python tribe. Therefore, I have attacked you." Qing Lin hurriedly explained when she heard this. Who would be those ugly legless things? Ziyin was extremely dissatisfied with Qing Lin comparing her with the 9 serene deep-ground python. She curled her mouth before she immediately thought that the region of this blow of hers was a little too wide. She hurriedly added, "Other than Kai Lin Jie." Xiao Yan helplessly shook her head. He ignored the argument of these two girls as he hugged the pill beast that was still trembling within his embrace. He voiced his thoughts. Although this pill beast does not have any energy ripple, an extremely experienced expert or an alchemist will still be able to sniff its pill fragrance and guess its true identity. Why don't we let Qing Lin keep it once again? Little fairy doctor suggested. That snow-white little beast appeared to have understood little fairy doctor after she uttered these words. It suddenly shook its head wildly. Its large eyes were watery as they looked at Xiao Yan. Those claws of it tightly gripped Xiao Yan's clothes. It seemed to be quite repulsive towards Qing Lin. Qing Lin involuntarily felt a little embarrassed when she saw his matter of the snow-white little beast. Ziyin by the side ended up laughing. Xiao Yan laughed bitterly when he saw this watery large eyes of the snow-white little beast. Was this little fellow trying to act cute for him to see? Cough, hand it to me. I am able to isolate the pill fragrance within its body. Little fairy doctor suddenly coughed slightly. Her pretty eyes stared intently at the snow-white little beast. From her manner, it was obvious that she was unable to endure the cute attack by this little fellow. A woman always loves such furry things. Xiao Yin involuntarily felt speechless when he saw this manner of little fairy doctor. It was unexpected that someone as strong as little fairy doctor was still unable to escape from this kind of rule. Immediately, he could only hand the snow-white little beast over. After hesitating for a moment, the little fellow also entered little fairy doctor's embrace. Its furry head randomly moved about in the latter's embrace, stirring little fairy doctor's lovely laughter. This caused the corner of Xiao Yan's mouth to twitch. Could this pill beast be a male? After receiving the pill wrist, an energy leaped onto little fairy doctor's finger. She subsequently pressed it onto the body of the pill beast. A layer of faint energy web appeared and adhered onto the fur of the little beast. With the adhesion of this energy web, that pill fragrance that caused one to feel relaxed also completely disappeared. When one looked over in this manner, this pill beast was completely the same as an ordinary small beast. It was likely that no one could discover its identity. Xiao Yin sighed in relief when he saw this. He glanced at the little beast, which had already shrunk in little fairy doctor's embrace. The corner of his eyes twitched before he turned around and kept the sky demon puppet and the many other puppets into his storage ring. After which, he spoke to Qing Lin. Keep those bodyguards of yours. Qing Lin nodded upon hearing this. A green light flashed in her eyes and the many bodyguards disappeared. They transformed into a ray of green light that rushed back into Qing Lin's eyes. Seeing this mysterious method, everyone, including Xiao Yin, involuntarily had some shocked expressions on their faces. This triple jade-green snake flower pupils was indeed extremely mysterious and extraordinary. After the triple jade-green snake flower pupils matures, a space can be formed within the eye. Those things that are controlled by me can be stored within it. However, there is also a limit. The limit can only be gradually increased with the increase in my strength. Qing Lin smilingly explained after seeing the surprise on everyone's faces. However, those who are controlled by me will gradually weaken. This is because the triple jade-green snake flower pupils will devour their strength and give it to me. Qing Lin's next sentence directly caused Xiao Yan's group to inhale a breath of cool air. This thing was really too frightening. If it was done this way, would it not mean that Qing Lin need not train? She merely needed to capture experts to control and gain the benefits from it? It is not as frightening as all of you imagine. That kind of devourment is extremely slow. Moreover, with my current strength, I am only able to control those 2-star dozun and below, and the numbers cannot exceed 3. Qing Lin extended her small tongue and said when she saw the manner of everyone. Additionally, I am only able to control those magical beasts that possess a snake bloodline. It does not have such an effect against a human or other magical beast. At the very most, it could only be of some assistance. Xiao Yin wiped off his cold sweat. He had personally experienced this kind of assistance earlier. If it was not because his soul was far more powerful than Qing Lin, it was not impossible for him to fall at the most unexpected place. Qing Lin's current strength was merely that of someone who had just advanced into the dozun class. It was not even stable. If she was to really fight with Xiao Yin with this kind of strength, it was likely that she would have been defeated within less than 20 exchanges. However, with the triple jade-green snake flower pupils, Xiao Yin would have to treat her seriously. No wonder your strength would rise so rapidly, Xiao Yin sighed. Back then, Qing Lin was not even a dozun. However, within less than 10 years, she had already reached such a stage. Such rapid training rate caused even Xiao Yin to feel ashamed. This was called speed. Although Xiao Yin sighed emotionally through his mouth, Xiao Yin also clearly understood in his heart that those similar to Qing Lin would likely not exceed 10 people on the entire continent. An extremely rare natural thing like the triple jade-green snake flower pupils was not something that everyone could possess. It is indeed worthy of being the top mysterious eyes in the world. It is so powerful that it causes one to tremble. Tian Huazunjia also inhaled a breath of air. His heart felt terrible. He, as an old fellow, had trained hard for so many years. Yet another person had caught up to him after training for less than a decade. Anyone would feel somewhat unbalanced within his heart. Xiao laughed bitterly after seeing everyone's shocked and speechless manner. He waved his hand and said, "This thing is something one is born with. There is no point in being envious. Let's go. We should head to the main hall. Otherwise, all the treasures will belong to the others if we arrive late." Everyone nodded upon hearing this. They withdrew their envy within their hearts. After making some preparations, they withdrew from this deserted pill room. At this moment, there was an increasingly number of experts who had hurried over to this third level of the pill hall after hearing some rumors. Some of the pill rooms would frequently emit some sound of battles as well as curses. Clearly, they had begun to fight because of the treasure that were discovered. Most of the remaining pill rooms had basically been searched. Hence, Xiao was also uninterested in searching them again. In any case, he had already obtained the greatest treasure within this pill hall. Everything else was insignificant. Hence, Xiao group did not continue to remain in this place. They directly searched for a path to leave. After which, the group of them brought a precious pill beast, which could cause countless number of eyes to turn green, and swaggered away. They had naturally attracted quite a number of gazes along the way. Some eyes paused for a moment on the pill beast in little fairy doctor's embrace, but no one could identify the true identity of this little things. Affing the frightening lineup of Xiao group, even those with quite a good eyesight would not foolishly stop them. The group successfully exited the pill hall and looked at the crossing pathways. They were a little stunned for a moment. This remains was too large. It was not easy to head to the main hall. "I will lead the way. I have found a rough map within the remains and know where the main hall is." Qinglin by the side laughed when they saw Xiao being at a loss. Xiao sighed in relief when he heard this. He nodded. This little girl was indeed a lucky star. She was already completely different from the young female servant from back then. Qinglin smiled when she saw this. She identified their position and her toes pressed on the ground, after which her lovely figure gently rushed out. Xiao group swiftly followed from behind. The complication of the interior of the ancient remains had exceeded Xiao expectations. He followed behind Qinglin. Those twining corridors directly caused one to feel as though one had entered a maze. Fortunately, this kind of feeling continued for around 10 minutes or so before the view of sight in front widened. His body once again charged some distance forward. An enormous old hall finally appeared in front of everyone's sight. This large hall was bronze yellow in color. The countless number of years had caused this bronze yellow to appear even deeper. An ancient aura spread out from every stone plate, causing one to feel that vicissitude that had been quiet for countless number of years. The large hall was extremely wide. A person standing within was just like an ant. The middle of the large hall were 10 huge light clusters. These light clusters were suspended in the midair. One could vaguely see some scroll-like objects within those glaring light. The heart of Xiao group pounded violently when their eyes caught sight of these light clusters. Could these be that so-called Tianclasto skill? Xiao eyes swept over these light clusters that were emitting a kind of mysterious pressure. It suddenly paused at the middle of the 10 light clusters. There was a stone seat at that spot. On the stone chair was a completely jade-white skeleton. The hands of the skeleton formed a seal as it sat. The skeleton of an elite doshang. Xiao mouth immediately felt a little dry as he looked at the skeleton. This was the first time he had seen an elite doshang. Although it was already just a set of bones, the pressure that came from deep within those bones was extremely heavy, causing Xiao group to feel a pressure. "This is the main hall of the remains," Qinglin softly said. Xiao nodded slightly. His eyes shifted away from the light clusters and the bones and looked towards the middle of the spacious large hall. Quite a number of people were already standing there. Moreover, all of their auras were strong. Xiao had also once again saw Feng Qing'er's group amongst them. They are really quick to arrive." A cold smile involuntarily flashed across Xiao face when he saw these figures. Human figures stood scattered about the spacious large hall. Other than a small number of lone rangers, most of the remaining people were all from fractions that possessed quite a great reputation in the Central Plains. This included the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe, Wind Lightning Pavilion, Ice River Valley, Burning Flame Valley, and other factions. All of them were already here. It seemed that their target was quite clear. All of them had directly hurried over to this place after entering the remains. Xiao Yan's group had naturally immediately attracted the attention of quite a number of people when they entered the large hall. Numerous eyes that were cautious, filled with enmity or friendliness, were being shot over. Xiao Yan smiled in the face of these gazes. His eyes glanced at the spot where Feng Qing'er was located. The latter was staring at him in a dark and solemn manner. It was likely that they still remembered the great loss that they had suffered within the beast spiritual barrier earlier. A cold smile surfaced on the corner of Xiao Yan's mouth when he saw this scene. He led everyone and slowly walked into the large hall in front of many gazes, after which she halted her footsteps within the large hall. After having walked into the large hall, Xiao Yan finally discovered that the dozen over human figures seated around the towering stone seat. These human figures were stone gray in color. They appeared just like stone statue from a great distance. Both of their eyes were tightly shut. They had maintained this stance of theirs for countless number of years. Despite this being the case, the bodies of these dozen over stone statue-like figures caused everyone to be afraid of being within 100 feet from the stone chair. Puppets? Little fairy doctor softly exclaimed in surprise when she saw these stone status-like human figures that did not possess any life. Yes, moreover, they are likely quite a high-grade puppet. This kind of feeling is similar to the Sky Demon puppet. If I guess correctly, these dozen over puppets possess the strength of the Dozun class. A serious expression ALS flashed across Xiao Yan's eyes. These puppets might not be moving at this moment, but this was merely because they were not activated. One could imagine just what kind of fierce and ruthless miserable killing it would be should these puppets be activated. The expression of Little Fairy Doctor's group changed slightly when they heard this. Over a dozen Dozuns. Even if this kind of lineup could be finished off by those experts present, the loss that they would suffer would also be quite great. It is indeed worthy of being the remains left by an elite Do Sheng. If they were to fight. Qing Lin also had a surprised face. This kind of lineup caused even her to tremble. Everyone should be careful later on. Do not separate. Xiao Yan's expression was grave as he reminded. After which, he turned his head. A smile rapidly appeared on his face. He cupped his hands together towards a certain direction. Little Fairy Doctor and the others looked over. It was actually the group from the Burning Flame Valley. Cuckoo, young friend Xiao Yan. Arriving just in time is better than arriving earlier. The seal on this place is becoming increasingly weak. It is likely that it will completely disappear soon. Tangjin smiled when he saw Xiao Yan. He led the experts from the Burning Flame Valley over and smilingly spoke to Xiao Yan. Valley Chief Tang, could this be the intention of this trip? Why would there be 10 of them? Xiao Yan smiled and asked. It was likely that he had the best relationship with the Burning Flame Valley amongst those present. The others were either people whom he was unfamiliar with or who were his enemies. Yes, it should be right. However, I think that there should only be one true Tian class Do techniques amongst these 10. As for who can obtain it, it will depend on the person's luck and strength. Tangjin smilingly nodded and replied, Oh, 9 fakes and 1 real. Xiao Yan was startled when he heard this. His eyes swept over the 10 light clusters in surprise. There were indeed many tricks within this ancient remains. It had actually pulled such a trick at the end. Attempting to obtain the true Tian class Do technique from amongst these 10 was not going to be easy. That's right, Tangjin smiled. His eyes swept over the surrounding large hall and softly said, Young friend, it looks like there are quite a number of people who are against you this time around. They are merely some small problems, Xiao Yan smiled. Amongst those present, only the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe, Wind Lightning Pavilion, and Ice River Valley had an enmity with him. The sum of the experts from these 3 parties would at the very most be equal to that of his side. It was difficult to tell who would win if they were to fight. Cuckoo, I have forgotten that you are currently no longer alone. Tangjin glanced at the people behind Xiao Yan. An emotional sigh also flashed across his eyes. With his eyesight, he was naturally able to tell just how frightening the lineup of Xiao Yan's group was. If the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe, Wind Lightning Pavilion, and the Ice River Valley did not join hands, It was likely that none of them could contend against Xiao Yan's group alone. The strongest here is not some faction. There is an unknown number of lone individuals who had come after hearing word of this remains. Most of these people possess some skills. Although their cohesion is not as great as a faction, their fighting strength are quite great. They are also vicious characters when it comes to snatching. Xiao Yan smiled. He had met quite a number of strong treasure seekers along the way. Although these people would usually not offend these large factions for no reason, under the allure of the Tian class Do technique, all of their fear and restraint would disappear. After all, if they really managed to obtain the Tian class Do technique, they, being alone, could directly hide in the vast deep mountains. Who could find them? Tangjin also smiled when he heard this. His gaze turned towards the 10 light clusters at the middle of the large hall. At this moment, the surrounding light of these clusters were becoming increasingly weak. Clearly, it was because the seal was losing its effect. Young friend Xiao Yan, can you tell which scroll within these 10 light clusters is the Tian class Do technique? Xiao Yan's eyes narrowed slightly when he heard Tangjin's words. The spiritual strength between his brows spread. After sensing for a moment, he shook his head and said, "The seal has completely blocked off all probing. Given my strength, how could I see through something that is placed by an elite Do Sheng? With things developing in this manner, we can only see just who is lucky. It is insufficient to possess sufficient luck. There are so many people with malicious intent here. It will be a hot potato when it lands on one's hands. One would instead become the common enemy of everyone." Tangjin laughingly said. Xiao Yan fell into a deep thought and nodded. "Cuckoo, this place will definitely become extremely chaotic in a while. We might perhaps be able to join hands should any unexpected situation occurs." Tangjin glanced towards the Ice River Valley, after which he swept his eyes over those seated puppets, which appeared to have entered a slumber, and said. Xiao Yan smiled slightly and nodded. The Burning Flame Valley was strong. Moreover, with Xiao Yan's current eyesight, he was naturally able to see through Tangjin's strength. A 5-star Do Zun or so. He was even stronger when compared to the valley chief of the Ice River Valley, Bing He Zunjia, and would not lose to that old ghost Zhai Xing from the Hall of Souls. Xiao Yan was naturally extremely willing to form an alliance with an expert of this level. After all, the current him was faced with enemies from multiple fronts. It was always good to have another helper. Additionally, be careful of those puppets. Tangjin fondled his beard and suddenly spoke softly. If I guess correctly, these puppets will awaken when the seal is undone. At that time, it will definitely be an extremely chaotic, bloody battle. Xiao Yan's eyes narrowed slightly as she nodded gently. The current situation was quite complicated. Not only did not need to be cautious against some opponents, but one must still be careful of these mysterious and powerful puppets. If one was careless and end up falling at the most unexpected place, it would really be the case of being unable to voice one's bitterness. However, as for now, let's wait until the seal disappears. There are no free lunches in this world. Xiao Yan smiled slightly when he heard this soft sigh from Tangjin. His eyes swept over those gazes present. Finally, it suddenly paused on the skeleton on the stone chair. A thought passed through his heart. Refining Yao Lao's body required the bones of an expert. This Doshang skeleton was still quite complete. If it could be used as a body, could it aid Yao Lao in advancing to the Doshang class? If Yao Lao was truly able to become an elite Doshang, they would no longer need to be that afraid of the Hall of Soul in the future. Moreover, the strength of the Falling Star Pavilion would also instantly reach the level of the Pill Tower. It would possess the capital to truly contend against the Hall of Soul. If it is possible, I can try to see if I can snatch that skeleton. A glint flickered within Xiao Yan's eyes. His heart also placed his attention on the skeleton. During the time they waited for the seal to disappear, some experts and factions had also continuously arrived at this large hall. With an increasing number of experts arriving at this place, the atmosphere within the large hall had become slightly tensed. Everyone were aware that in a while, those whom they were still smiling and greeting a short time ago would kill them without any hesitation. Under this kind of atmosphere, some of the factions with relations with each other, or some experts who were familiar with each other, began to quietly gather. In such a chaotic place, It was likely impossible to obtain the treasure by just relying on the strength of a single person slash. An increasing number of experts were present within the large hall. This caused Xiao Yin to involuntarily frown slightly. He threw an expression towards Little Fairy Doctor's group, and they began to gradually lean closer to each other. All of their hearts began to become more cautious. Chi-Chi. Numerous hurried figures continuously rushed towards the large hall. Although there were more and more people within the large hall, it was still frighteningly quiet. The pressuring atmosphere caused quite a number of people to have some cold sweat. Do-Chi was gushing through every part of their bodies. Any slight commotion and the Do-Chi would be stirred, erupting into a shocking lethal strength. Xiao Yan's hands were inserted into his sleeves. His eyes were slightly shut as his spiritual strength covered the interior of this large hall. However, the thing that caused him to feel a little strange was that he had not discovered any experts from the Hall of Soul. Could it be that they did not possess much interest in this ancient remains? These fellows always arrive when there are treasures. Why would? The muttering within Xiao Yan's heart had yet to appear when his expression suddenly changed. His slight shut eyes were suddenly opened. Just when he had opened his eyes, a strange laughter transformed into a sharp sonic wave that appeared both near and far as it resounded across this large hall. TSK, looks like I am not late this time around. A killing intent surged within Xiao Yan's heart when he heard this somewhat familiar strange laughter. Have they finally arrived? Old Ghost Jai Xing.